Recording the Ben Gourion interview at Stable Kerr, Israel, 24 frames.
באפריל 1968 נאות דוד בן גוריון להעניק ראיון מצולם לצוות קולנוע בריטי שהקים סט צילום מושקע ליד ביתו שבמדבר. הראיון עם המנהיג שהכריז על הקמתה של המדינה היהודית ב-1948 ואשר שימש ראש הממשלה 13 שנים נערך בהיותו בן 82, 5 שנים לאחר שהתפטר במפתיע מראשות הממשלה. את הראיון מצאנו במקרה בארכיון ספילברג בירושלים, שאליו הגענו כדי לשחזר סרט עלילתי על חייו של בן גוריון שהופק בסוף שנות ה-60. להפתעתנו, מצאנו לצידו ערימה של גלגלי פילם 35 מילימטרים, ובהם מתועד הראיון הלא מוכר עם בן גוריון. אורכו של הראיון כ6 שעות, והתברר לנו שהוא שימש תחקיר לכתיבת התסריט של הסרט העלילתי. לדאבוננו, עבד הפסקול שלו, והתמונה נותרה אילמת. החיפוש אחר הפסקול האבוד הוביל אותנו לארכיון בן גוריון שבנגב. שם יהודי בריטי בן 86, שהיה המקליט של הראיון, הפקיד כמה שנים קודם לכן את צלילי הסאונד המקוריים, בלי לדעת איך נשמרה התמונה האילמת של הראיון. כך נחשף בפעם הראשונה בסרט זה, ראיון ארוך, אינטימי ונדיר עם דוד בן גוריון. המראיין היה בחור צעיר, יהודי אמריקני, דוקטור קלינטון ביילי, שעלה לארץ ובעקבות בן גוריון עבר להתגורר במדבר. הראיון נערך 4 חודשים בלבד לאחר מות רעייתו פולה. בן גוריון גר לבדו, במחיצת שומרי הראש שלו, במקום מושבו במדבר.
Mr. Ben Gourion?
Yes, please.
What do you do with your time nowadays?
See, I left the government in 1963 for a simple purpose, to write the history of the remaking of the Jewish state, which I regard began not in May 1948, but in 1870.
How long will that take you?
Another 6 or 8 years.
Do you have faith that you'll be able to do it?
It's possible, but I'm not certain. Tomorrow, there'll be some accident and I will be finished. Today, almost every day I hear there's an accident, people are being killed.
But in general, you don't fear death?
Will you tell me if I do fear? Why should I fear? So it won't change anything.
How did your Zionism come to you when you were a young man?
First of all, they came to my father.
And it all began in Plonsk.
I didn't like that life at all.
What were the things you liked to do as a child?
I like to read. I read Uncle Tom's Cabin. I was about 8 years old. I admired that there is such a person like Tom. And such a great man, although he's a slave. And I was astonished that there are people who have slaves and misusing them. Because there are terrible stories there in that book.
When you got your Zionism at a young age, it came with a lot of dedication.
I was very young. When Herzl appeared, in a little town they said Messiah has come. And I believed it. He's a very beautiful person, with a large, long, black beard.
What did you expect when you came to, what should we call it, Palestine or the land?
Eretz Israel. Well, it depends on what point of view. From Jewish point of view, there are very few Jewish settlements. Many came, but almost the same day or a week later they left again. Very few remained. This is the First World War. There was complete anarchy in the country. One village was fighting with the other. My ideal was to work on the land. I saw every day thousands of Arab workers are coming and going straight to work. The Jew must stand near the synagogue. The farmer came and looked at something. As you do.
Muslims.
Then he chose one worker. And it took me 10 days until I got the first day of work. But then I got malaria. That night it was terrible. I couldn't work. I couldn't eat. I wrote every week 2-3 letters to my father, describing the country. So I thought I'm happy. But there were many people from my town. And they were going and coming back. And they told my father how I'm living. When he heard that, he sent me a letter, come back. So I understood that he learned that I
told him.
I sent him a letter. Abba means father. You know I will not leave this country.
So it strikes me that in those early years of yours, you were a rebel. You were not ready to accept the normal life, the conformist life. You were against it.
What is normal life? The normal life is abnormal life. We wanted to create a new life, not the life which exists. I believe that we are right to this country, not taking away from others, but recreating it. So when did I reach the ideal to create everything from the beginning? Only 14 years ago. I once came back from Iraq, and suddenly I see there's some young people, a few huts. So I left my car, I went down, I asked them, what are you doing here? They told me we were fighting the war of independence in this place. Here I saw that that dream can become a fact. And I decided, although I was then Prime Minister, Minister of Defense, I decided to join them to start building up in the desert where there is no soil, no water, no grass, no rain.
So you mean to tell me that only 14 years ago, beginning
That's it.
your dream...
That's it. Create everything from the beginning, because until then it was impossible.
אדוני יושב ראש, חברי הכנסת, עליי למסור הודעה בשם הממשלה. לצערי הרב, ראש הממשלה דוד בן גוריון הודיע אתמול בישיבת הממשלה על החלטתו להתפטר מלהיות ראש הממשלה ושר הביטחון.
Solitude
Yes?
has played a great role in your life.
Yes.
You've always worked among men, you've been a leader of people, yet by your own choice, you sometimes desired and have gotten solitude, whether it be personal or political. Has solitude been important to you? Is this part of a philosophy of life?
It is not correct that you say solitude. When I decided to come here, to live here, it's not for solitude.
But you don't mind being alone.
No, when I have to do some work, I want to be alone. Or to read. I can't read with others. But no, not so to be alone, no solitude, no. But I will tell you what is my view on these things. I believe that every human being can be good and can be bad. It depends a great deal where he finds himself. What people are serving as their example. This is why, for instance, I am against having big cities. The big cities are not good for humanity. It's better to live in a small place when each knows the other man. They can be more friendly. We don't need a city more than 10 or 50,000 people. Why big cities? All Jews are going to Tel Aviv. You can have 100 cities, even more 500 in the Negev. The most important thing I learned while living here, living this life. I want to live in a place when I will know that my friends and myself, we did it, everything. It's our creation. You say, the trees which I see, I know we have planted them. The trees then speaks to me in another language. I know it can be created by man.
בשדה בוקר ירד הבוקר גשם. סיבה מספקת לשמחה ביישוב השוכן בלב האזור הצחיח הישראלי. שמחת הגשם נזדמנה לשמחה אחרת, לטקס חנוכת רשת הרדיו-טלפון. מר דוד בן גוריון הגיב על ההישג מבחינת חשיבותו הכללית.
אני רוצה להודות לכם על שהבאתם לנו את הברכה המפוקפקת של רדיו-טלפון. אני אומר מפוקפקת כי אחד התענוגות שלפחות היו לי שלא ידעתי מקללת הטלפון שמבלבל אותי תמיד בשעה שהייתי עסוק באיזה ספר, אבל כנראה אין מנוס שאנחנו עכשיו נעשו לאנשי צפון. המרחק בינינו ובין אילת הוא יותר גדול מאשר המרחק בימי בואי לארץ בין הנקודה הכי דרומית בארץ ובין מטולה.
הגיעה השעה לנסות את המכשיר החדש ולהעמידו במבחן.
הלו, אדוני הנשיא, אני שולח לך ברכת תושבי הנגב ברדיו טלפון שאנחנו הולכים עכשיו. לכבוד המראה החשוב הזה התחיל גשם לרדת, אבל האורחים שלנו שמחים. תמצא שלום גם לכם. The greatest teaching, which in my view is the greatest teaching, is words which are not connected with deeds, are absolutely nothing. In our kibbutz, I told them, my name is David, not Ben Gourion. So every morning I came to see what David has to do, so I went to do the work. This is what the prophet said. It can serve as an example to other people. One of the greatest prophets in my view is Jeremiah. I have the feeling what he's saying is true. When he said, God said to me, I heard it in his heart. He didn't talk with God. Nobody can talk with God. But this was his deep feeling. And he was a great statesman. He understood politics more than the kings. But this was unpopular. And this is a statesman who is not considering the thing which ought to be done, whether it is popular or not. Then he's a dangerous man, if he looks to be unpopular.
Well, you've had many decisions to make which were unpopular. At the time you decided to accept German reparations, for example, that was very unpopular.
Well, of course it was unpopular. But first of all, I thought that the attitude to all Germans as to Nazis is wrong. It's unjust. Not all. I couldn't say that Adenauer is a Nazi. He was not a Nazi.
Violent demonstrations throughout Israel today. Blood money, guilt money, screamed the crowd as stones were thrown at the Parliament building. At the center of the storm are the negotiations between Israel and Western Germany on reparations to compensate the survivors of Hitler's concentration camps. The survivors insist genocide has no price.
Germania shall Adenauer אינה גרמניה של היטלר. גרמניה של ימינו לא תשוב לעולם להיות מה שהייתה לפני מלחמת העולם השנייה.
אתם הגרמנים ידעתם, עכשיו אתם קוראים וידרגוטמאכונג למה שנקרא שילומים. כשאני שומע את המילה הגרמנית הזאת, אתם יודעים מה פירושה בעברית? תיקון העוול. הם לא רק הרגו 6 מיליון אנשים, נשים וילדים, הם גם שדדו את דמנו בעשרות אם לא ב100 מיליארד דולר.
It was a very emotional problem. People had lost relatives. They had lost family.
Yes, therefore, with people who were living in Auschwitz, I don't discuss this question. I know I cannot explain it. I don't expect them to understand it. So with them, I don't discuss it. I discuss it only with people who didn't suffer for themselves. But by reason, this is not reason. It's unjust, it's not Jewish. Because, but Jeremiah said, and the same thing said Ezekiel. בימים ההם לא ימרו את אבות אכלו בוסר ושני בנים תקנה. האוכל הבוסר שיניו תקנה. Those who are criminal, they will suffer, but not the children. And not the fathers for the children. And this is right. Although in history it's not so. America is suffering now from the crimes of their forefathers. They bought slaves from Africa and they are paying now for it.
Mr. Ben-Gurion.
But this is immoral. History is not moral.
הבוקר בשעה 9:30 נפגשו מר דוד בן גוריון והקנצלר אדנאואר במלון וולדורף אסטוריה שבו שניהם מתאכסנים.
Mein Treffen mit Premierminister David Ben Gourion hat mich sehr bewegt. Ich bin seit langem ein Bewunderer seiner Kraft und seiner staatsmännischen Leistung.
I wish the Chancellor every success in his efforts to guide Germany in its path of democracy and international cooperation. Thank you very much.
Adenauer und der israelische Regierungschef Ben Gourion ein Geheimdokument über westdeutsche Rüstungslieferungen an Israel unterzeichneten. Auf der Grundlage der westdeutsch-israelischen Geheimverträge sind bisher mehr als 5000 israelische Soldaten und Offiziere von der Bundeswehr ausgebildet worden. 52 westdeutsche Wissenschaftler und über 400 Rüstungsspezialisten arbeiten an israelischen Forschungsinstituten, die sich mit der militärischen Anwendung der Kernenergie befassen. Für praktische Versuche steht ihnen der Atomreaktor in der Wüste Negev zur Verfügung. Für diese Zwecke gab, wie ADN erklärt, Bonn bisher über 81 Millionen Mark.
Do you think that before the Nazi era, we could have saved more Jews?
You cannot save people who don't know what is their fate. Those who accuse the Jews that didn't defend themselves, I think it's wrong. They were powerless. Well, 1 million children were killed. Well, what could the children do? More than 1 million mothers were killed. What could they do? They were undressed. They were called to stay here. And then they were killed. I read whatever there was written about them. I doubt whether they could prevent it. But the others could prevent it, allowing them to come to Israel. This is what they didn't allow them.
Could Churchill have prevented it?
I doubt it. See, I can't accuse him. Churchill has one task: to destroy, to defeat Hitler. Churchill was a good friend of Zionism. But he was right in thinking that the main task now is to defeat Hitler. But they could save many Jews. They were asked to bomb Auschwitz, Treblinka. They could do it. They didn't do it.
What were your reactions when you saw the Jews in Europe after World War II? What were you doing in Germany at that time?
When the war was over, I decided to go to see the Jews in Germany, the DPs.
Were you moved when you saw these? Did you actually see the camps themselves?
Oh, I was in all camps.
Wir, der letzte kleine Rest der europäischen Judenheit. Wir klagen Europa an. Wir sind staatenlos, heimlos.
That it was the Jewish people who made Palestine. That was Palestine who made the Jewish people. There is an obligation to encourage the administration of Palestine asking for freedom of Jewish immigration, which will result in a free and democratic Jewish Commonwealth in Palestine.
Many Jews think of Israel as a place of refuge for unfortunate Jews. Why should the Jews come back to Zion?
Well, our mission, we had a great Jew. It's about 3,300 years ago. He was the greatest Jew we ever had. His name was Moshe. He said, Atem hamiat mikol amim, v'alechem liyot am segula.
Am segula could be translated as a nation of higher virtues.
This is one of the meanings. This is one of the meanings.
What would be our virtues then? The virtues that we should aspire to?
Well, the virtues which we were asked by our prophets was to be just, truthful, helping all those who need help, and love other men like yourself. These are the virtues.
Do you think Israel is carrying out that mission?
Not yet.
When you were head of the movement and were prime minister of this country, did you also tell the people, or try to tell the people, to be an Am Segula?
As soon as the war was over, as long as the war was going on, I thought security, this is our main business. When the war was over, this was the beginning of January 1949. I called together our best men which I have here. Buber, Hugo Bergman, and others. I said to them, while until now, we had to fight, which is against our belief in our faith. But destiny imposed it on us. And unless we will keep and increase spiritual superiority, I doubt whether we'll be able to achieve what we ought to achieve. And therefore we need you.
This is a very big day. It's Mr. Ben-Gurion's birthday. The whole family, his children and grandchildren, have come together with many lifelong friends. Amongst them is the President of the State of Israel, Mr. Yitzhak Ben-Zvi, who's come to offer his congratulations to his longtime colleague and associate. A president's suit must be clean, and Mrs. Ben-Gurion takes care of that.
גדלנו עם אבא ובלי אבא. אבא היה, כשהייתי ילדה, היה מזכיר ההסתדרות והמשכורת הייתה קטנה. כשאנחנו היינו יושבים לאכול והייתי אומרת, אמא תאכלי איתנו, הייתה אומרת לו, אני אוכל עם אבא כשהוא יבוא. כשאבא היה בא והיה אומר, פולנו, תצטרפי לשולחן, הוא אומר, לא, אני אכלתי כבר עם הילדים. היא מנעה אוכל מפיה מפני שלא היה מספיק. אבא לא ידע מזה אף פעם, הוא היה בכלל בספרות אחרות. קשה מאוד היה לי. המעבר הזה מהעיר, שומם, בלי חברה, אנשים צעירים. לאבא זה לא הפריע כי הוא לא זקוק, היה לו הנייר והעיפרון והספר.
Mr. Ben-Gurion, I like the idea of talking to you in this kibbutz where you've retired. And we spoke about your resignation in order to come down here. I suppose was for you the end of politics.
The end of politics.
I was very much against it.
You were against the resignation?
The resignation of the politics.
You would like him to go on in politics?
Yeah, because he could not exist without politics.
I can exist without politics.
No, you can't. It's born in you.
Mrs. Ben-Gurion, did you share your husband's Zionist enthusiasms?
Yeah, you can't be obviously have some difficulties also in opinion. Of course, I thought that was the right thing.
It must have been a difficult time to bring up children with all this going on. How did you make out?
I had no alternative. I had to make it out. It's a good thing they came out something, but I took care of them.
Well, this was really her task, because I was traveling.
Of course, but you managed to do that.
Of course. There's no piastre in the house.
Your life must have undergone a tremendous change when you were describing how looking after the children with no piastres, and then you find yourself the wife of the Prime Minister?
I knew he was a leader. What's the difference? I knew he's a leader.
So it didn't really make much difference?
And when they addressed me, the Prime Minister's wife, I told them I'm not the Prime Minister's wife. I'm the wife of Ben-Gurion.
There is a country, Israel, their nation.
Yes.
How is that going to affect the character of Jews as we've known them?
I'm a Jew, not only Israeli. I'm an Israeli Jew, but I'm a Jew.
And what about the Zionists?
Well, Zionists, I declared that I'm not a Zionist more than 10 or 12 years ago.
What does that mean when you say you're not a Zionist?
See, when I became a Zionist, I thought that be a Zionist means to return to Zion. This is not to live in Plonsk.
So you think they should all come here?
Yes, when there was a state, nobody's coming. So what is the meaning of Zionism? But they're entitled to call themselves Zionists. I said, I am not a Zionist.
I'm not a Zionist, and I'm not a Zionist.
Then I saw the name socialism has no meaning. And I asked myself a second question. Who calls himself a socialist? Hitler, on one side, National Socialist, and Stalin. If Stalin is a socialist, I have nothing with that kind of socialism.
Mr. Ben-Gurion, you're not a Zionist, you're not a socialist.
I'm not a socialist.
What are you?
I'm a Jew who wants to live in a world where there is peace among all nations and where there is no exploitation but mutual help among human beings.
פולה בן גוריון נפטרה משטף דם פתאומי. חבריו של דוד בן גוריון הגיעו לשדה בוקר כדי להביע השתתפות בצער המשפחה. אבל מותה היה אבלם של רבים.
Your life must have changed considerably since your wife passed away. Yet you go on working. You're not a crushed man.
A crushed man? No, why should I be crushed?
Many people are crushed by loss.
By?
By loss.
By loss? Yes, well, of course. I don't feel now what I felt 4 months ago, but I can't help it. I didn't expect it. I was certain that I will die before all this. But fate decided otherwise. This can be changed.
I read many of the letters that you wrote to Paula in the early years of your marriage. They reveal a great love, a great tenderness.
You see, she was a remarkable woman. She was not a Zionist. She has very little Jewish feeling. She was an American. She was an anarchist. At that time, all the progressive youth were anarchists. And our hero was an anarchist woman, Goldman. This was the greatest man she knew. She had no interest in Israel. She didn't know what for. But America is better. What do we need to land Israel? But when we decided to marry each other, I told her, you will have to go to Israel. And I told her what Israel is done. And she agreed. And so she really left, later came. In November 1919, she came to Israel with a child. Then suddenly, 50 years ago, I told her, I'm going to the desert. She thought I'm mad. That I'm resigning from the government, going to live in the desert. But she did it. She followed me. Not many women should do that. So she was very much devoted. And this is a great thing. But now I'm alone, but you can't help it. I'm now a half man, but I must do it what I can.
בערוץ נחל צין בשעת דמדומים נערך היום טקס סיום המחזור הראשון של בית הספר התיכון שליד מדרשת שדה בוקר. בין הקהל הרב שישב על החול הרך בלט האיש היוזם, הממריץ והפעיל. פניו השזופות ובלוריתו הלבנה כאילו קנו להם שביתה בתוך הנוף והתמזגו בתוכו.
רון כאילו אהבת צינור, צינורות עורקי הנגב, זה דרכו של המזמור, מן הברז אל הרגב סובי, סובי, ממטרה.
כשנתבקש לשאת דברים, אמר, אין לי מה לומר, היו ברוכים. ניסיתי לדובב את האיש. שאלתיו אם יסכים לשוחח על נושאים אחרים מלבד הנגב, אך הוא לא הסכים. קיפץ על האבנים והחול, נכנס למכוניתו וחזר לצריפו הירוק שבשדה בוקר.
I'd like to ask you a question about yourself. You can work almost under any circumstances. I once spoke to Feldenkrais, and he was disparaging willpower. I said, Ben Gourion has willpower, and he said no, and his definition was this. Willpower is something you need to do what you don't want to do. Ben Gourion doesn't work on willpower. He likes what he does. Would you agree with that?
That's true that I like what I do, that's true. But you still need willpower to do it. Perhaps he's right.
What type of exercises did you do with Feldenkrais?
Oh, it's very complicated. He knows his works. Before the signing campaign, I again was with Lamberger. He knows the anatomy of men like no doctor which I met in my life. Really healed me, and no more Lamberger.
בזמן שהוא התחיל לעשות את הצעדות האלה, אז היו אנשים שטלפנו לו רוצים לדבר אותו, הוא אומר, אין לי זמן, אבל אם אתה רוצה, תבוא איתי לצעדה, יש לה פגישה, אני יכול לדבר. בלילה הוא לא היה נרדם, והוא היה קורא לא ספר אחד עד תומו, כי כמה ספרים בעונה אחת. למה העמדתי אותו לראש? כל העולם מתנגד. אבל אני אמרתי לבן גוריון, הבן, אתה, יש לך גוף קטן, אתה אף פעם לא התגאית בגופך, ולכן אתה הזנחת את זה ביצירתך, התחלת להתעסק בדברי ספר, ואתה באת להיות אדם מבוגר מבלי שהיו לך ימי עלומים כמו לכולם. וזה חסר לך גם היום. ולכן אני רוצה שתעשה דבר כזה שלדעתך זה נקרא דבר של קרקש. איזה דבר אתה לא יודע לעשות בכלל? הוא אומר לעמוד על הראש. אז אני אומר לו, אתה תעמוד על הראש ותראה שתעשה את זה יותר טוב מרבים צעירים ממך. ברגע שהוא הצליח לעמוד על הראש, הוא לא היה אדם יותר מאושר מן האיש הזה. לטבריה הוא התחרה עם יהודה מנוחי. יהודה מנוחי לעמוד על הראש. בן גוריון אמר שהוא יכול לעמוד יותר זמן ממנו.
Mr. Ben Gourion?
Yes, please.
Yes. I'd like to ask you a question about your connection to Jewish history.
Jewish history?
And it's this. The prophets in the Bible had a vision for the future, and they connected that vision with a faith in God. The presence of God is in the prophets.
Yes.
They needed strength, and they turned to God. Do you also turn to God when you need strength?
Are you sure that they turn to God? What do you mean by say turning to God?
They found
Does God live in some place and you turn to him?
They could pray to
God. God is everywhere.
What do you think they turned to?
The turn to God is thinking deeply about something. It means they're going to God. They take his address and go there.
Thinking deeply about something?
Yes.
Meditating?
Meditating, of course.
Do you think there's...
This is talking to God. Well, the Rambam said God doesn't talk. He's not a human being.
Do you think there's a lot of room in Judaism for meditation? Is meditation a theme in Judaism?
Well, it's used... No, I'm afraid you use the word meditation in the Buddhistic sense.
In the Buddhistic sense?
I think.
Okay.
Well, meditation has not that meaning that you are now applied to it.
Okay. Buddhism, there is a context for meditation in Buddhism.
Yes.
Did you find that in Buddhism when you were interested in Buddhism?
No, I saw that people were doing it, meditating.
You find that meditation is helpful?
No. Well, there is meditation, there is thinking. Thinking, I think, is helpful.
Yes.
Yes.
Are there other things in Buddhism that interest you?
Oh, there are many. He was a very great man. See, Uno said, we had a talk, he was sitting in Hong Kong, I was in Jerusalem, and the American television man was in New York.
Good evening. Tonight's Small World unites two statesmen and scholars who are also old friends.
Shalom, Mr. Ben Gourion.
Shalom, Mr. Uno.
Uno, in a recent speech, you said that part of the world's troubles and ills came from the repeated use of the word I.
According to Buddhism, this is the very source of all the troubles. So if we want to get rid of all these troubles, first of all, we must get rid of this I consciousness.
What do you think we should do in order to get rid of this I consciousness?
Meditate. Meditation is the only way by which we can get rid of that I. That's why when I visited Israel a few years ago, I had invited the Prime Minister to come over to Rangoon and have a little bit of meditation. He has accepted it.
But meditation, dear Uno, is not enough. Meditation is merely a personal thing. Every one of us must do something for the world, for humanity. The I is not so bad in itself. The question is whether it's a selfish I or a human I.
Buddha also believed in the non-self, anatta.
His teaching was teaching of love, human love. He said hatred doesn't cease through hatred, only by love. This in Dhammapada, he said. And this was said 500 years before Christ. And this also, as you find in the Torah, very deep old human morality. You should love thy fellow man like yourself. So the German teachers of the Bible, they interpreted it means only Jews. But they forgot that in the same chapter, chapter 19, Leviticus, they said a little later, if a stranger will live among you, he should be to you like a citizen, and you should love him like yourself, because you were strangers in Egypt. So it doesn't mean only Jews.
Mr. Bjorn, do you think Israel is going to have to fight the Arabs again? And if so, can we win?
What I would say is they maybe have to fight again. Even several times, but I wouldn't say that they must fight again. Take the prophecy law, they shouldn't learn war anymore. They shouldn't spend their money and their time, their people, their young men, for preparing for war.
But if a country has to defend itself, as in the War of Independence.
I think this is the unique case in the history of the world, certainly in our time, that a new state, in the same day when it was proclaimed, became a state, was attacked by all their neighbors. I don't know of any other case. Because this compelled us to give our best youth and our best brains for security.
אם כן, לפני 10 שנים ביום הזה קרא מר בן גוריון מגילת העצמאות ישיבה ההיסטורית. ועתה יישא דברו ראש הממשלה מר דוד בן גוריון.
המאורע שמתרחש באולם זה לפני 10 שנים חרוט על דפי ההיסטוריה היהודית והעולמית. אני עבדכם הייתי אחד מהמעטים שלא השתתף בשמחה הזאת. ליבי היה מעלה חרדה גדולה וכבדה. ולא הייתי עומד על חוויה אישית זו, אלמלא נדמה לי לא היו לו תוצאות חשובות.
עתה מתקרבת למיקרופון הגברת הראשונה של הבימה הישראלית חנה רובינה. היא תקרא מגילת העצמאות שאותה קרא מר בן גוריון לפני 10 שנים.
בארץ ישראל קם העם היהודי, בה עוצבה דמותו הרוחנית, הדתית והמדינית.
לפיכך נתכנסנו אנו חברי מועצת העם
ביום סיום המנדט
הבריטי על ארץ ישראל.
But you knew that when you declared a state, the community here was in danger. There were people, the United States for example, which counseled a delay of the Declaration of Independence. Yet you went ahead with it. Were you confident at the time that Israel could make a stand, or did you have doubts?
I knew that we can win. I couldn't say to myself, I'm certain that we will, because it didn't depend only on me. It depended, will we be able to bring over the arms?
In other words, if you had the arms, you could depend on the people.
Yes, on the people, yes, I knew the people we can depend on.
They had the right qualities.
Yes, this I knew all the time.
What were these qualities?
These qualities was love for peace, but capability of fighting when necessary. The first organization which has shown that was Hashomer. This was under the Turks, before the mandate. But the new thing which we'd done was to guard ourselves, self-defense, to defend the Jewish villages when necessary, but to make an effort to have good relations with Arabs. And this was the spirit of the Jewish army. To have a force which will be able to defend, but which also can ensure peace and good relation. In that respect, we didn't succeed. The Hashomer succeeded more in that than we. I know the type of people that laid the foundations for the state of Israel since 1870. I made a study, and I knew them personally since I came to this country nearly 62 years ago. They were not of that type. They didn't come for war and for conquest. They had that vision, and that pioneering spirit, and that devotion. But when there was a danger for their bare existence, they would defend themselves.
Do you think there's any danger that if the military continues to have such a prominent role to play in the affairs of state?
Not our army, no. No, not our army. The army here was not merely a military unit. It is the greatest educational institution we have in the country. They brought together different Eidot, European communities, Asian communities, African communities. And when I saw that there are many who cannot read and write in the army. He came to this country, was already 15. So you cannot compel him to go to school. But he must go to the army. So he came to the army, cannot read and write. I gave an order that 6 months they should be free from military service and only learn in the КАТА. So he feels he's rising, he's being great. So this is the best school for uniting the people and giving them trust in their leaders.
In Eilat, Israel's southernmost port and its gateway to the Red Sea, he reviews a parade of young soldiers.
How do you feel about your work as Minister of Defense as you look back on it today?
I think it was not bad.
And when a person has to make big decisions involving countries, lives, there must always be the fear of making mistakes. How do you get over the fear?
And you can never know if you are not making a mistake. Because if you know I make a mistake, you don't make it. You do something because you think it's right. And I never assumed that, no, I can't make a mistake. But from what I could understand, I thought it ought to be done. But there are several things the government didn't accept. The majority is ruling. But on most occasions, they accepted.
You know that most of the countries that have been established since the Second World War have failed at democracy. Can Israel's democracy survive?
I hope it will. And sometimes democracy can make mistakes. But it's better to make a mistake in a democracy than make right.
When you are here, do you miss some of the people that you've been associated with for many years who are now politically alienated from you?
Well, who?
Dayan, Golda Meir.
For?
Do you miss them? People that you were accustomed to seeing?
I don't miss them. I am sorry that they are doing not the right thing. They're very nice men, I like them. And I'm sorry they're doing certain things which they shouldn't have done. But all right. Perhaps everybody, I'm afraid, I also do certain things which I shouldn't have done. I know one speech which I made in the Knesset, now I wouldn't make it.
You wouldn't make it?
No. Immediately after the war in the signing campaign was over, I was so drunk. In 7 days they took the whole of Sinai. So it's impossible. The area of Sinai is at least 5 times as big as the whole of Israel. So I got a little drunk with that victory. And I said a little too much, which I wouldn't say now. I went too far. Some of the government thought that I want to have Sinai as a part of Israel. And I was asked this question. Will we annex Sinai if you catch it? I said, no. Our intention is to go to Sinai, is to ensure freedom of navigation in Eilat. Let's just not forget what happened this last year, 6 days war.
Good evening. This, the third day of the Middle East war, has shown convincing proof of Israel's military superiority. Israeli armored columns continue their sweep to the southwest beyond the Gaza Strip and to the south in Sinai. How did it happen? And more important, what happens now?
Mr. Ben-Gurion, is this 1956 all over again?
No, this is 1967.
And is it better than 56?
But people must make progress.
Do you think you are making real progress today?
I hope so.
Where would you like to stop? Are you going to occupy the whole of Jerusalem?
No, we are satisfied with our present boundaries.
Do you wish to increase the land area of Israel?
If they will try against our part of Jerusalem, we will show them.
Do you wish to increase the land size of Israel, which is so small and narrow?
We want to have peace on the basis of status quo.
זהו הכותל, ואני נוגע באבני הכותל המערבי.
I was in London when the war broke out in 1967. And a day or two after the war, while I was in the hotel, a telephone rang saying Tel Aviv calling, and there was Mr. Ben-Gurion. And he urged me to come at once. And I said, I want to come, this is my country, and I want to come, but I will choose the time for coming. I just can't come now. He did. I saw him in England. I came out with suggestions as far as Palestine was concerned. I said, we think that the Arab case of Palestine should be presented by the Palestinians themselves. But we don't have the means, we don't have the possibility. Does that mean that I'm a beggar or everything? No. Of course, I've known Mr. Ben-Gurion for more than 40 years. I used to see them almost daily. And to like very much Mr. Ben-Gurion because of his frankness. His frankness was sometimes frightening when he would express his views about the destiny and the future of the Arabs. We disagreed, but we always wanted to try and find a common ground. but I'm afraid that he's out of politics. And you are now in the flesh of your war victories. And we are under the spirit of being defeated and being downtrodden and all the rest of it. And so both of us are in abnormal conditions. I consider you just as much abnormal as we are. Because you are not considering the future, you are only considering the present. And we are not considering the distant future, we are considering our present suffering. But I do believe that this country has the making of a country of peace.
Mr. Ben Gourion, since you've been in this country, practically it's been in a state of war, almost half a century. Is there any...
No, more than half a century, yeah.
Is there any
I was
hope?
reborn here.
You were reborn.
I consider my birth when I came to this country.
In 1956, in the Sinai campaign, Israel withdrew under some world pressure. Do you think there is any hope for a permanent peace here? Or is this a kind of a state that's going to go on for another century?
I can give you my own personal view. You see, you know, I don't belong to any party. I don't speak on behalf of anybody here. If I would have a choice between peace in all the territories which we conquered last year, I would prefer peace. Because I know that within the boundaries which you've got before the 6 Days War, we could settle as many Jews as are likely to come within the next 20 or 40 years.
The West Bank of the Jordan, occupied by Israel during the 6 Day War, and the scene of some of the most bitter guerrilla fighting ever since. And now the center of a new political storm, with the American proposal that any peace settlement with Jordan must include the handing back of this territory.
פגישתו הראשונה של מר רוג'רס בישראל הייתה עם מר דוד בן גוריון. מר בן גוריון, האם הצגת בפני מר רוג'רס את השקפותיך הידועות באשר לעתיד השטחים?
כן, אמרתי לו שזה דת יחיד.
Mr. Ben Gourion, Israel is once again faced with an historical challenge. That is the negotiation of a peace treaty recognizing secure boundaries. Do you think that the government's policy is one that can achieve peace in the Middle East?
You mean the Israeli government?
Yes.
They made only one mistake, in my view. When Rogers made his plan,
The Secretary of State.
The Secretary of State, they did accept it entirely.
They did not accept it.
Not only under conditions. Egypt accepted it. I myself think it's a mistake. I knew that we are entitled to the whole of Israel. This was our country. It was never a country. It was never a Palestinian people. It was never a Palestinian state. And we never gave up our hope to come back to our country. And this is our country. But if I have to choose the entire country or peace, I think peace is more important. My own view is that if you can have peace, you should give up all the territories which you conquered, with two exceptions, Jerusalem and Golan Heights.
Withdrawal, then.
Everything.
So withdrawal today is one of the most sensitive and politically controversial words. Do you think that Mrs. Mayer has to hold an election to ask the people for a mandate on withdrawal?
I think, I don't know. I had only once talked with her. We met for some reasons. What is your question? Whether she will...
Whether she should. If you were Prime Minister, would you hold an election on the issue of withdrawal and put the question before the people?
If I would be Prime Minister, I would say, this is my view. If you don't accept it, you are entitled to accept it, but then I must leave. I will resign. I would resign.
ישיבה זו מוקדשת לציון מלאת 85 שנה לאחד יחיד ומיוחד, הלוא הוא דוד בן גוריון.
כבוד נשיא המדינה, כבוד ראש הממשלה, כבוד חברי הכנסת, שמעד עכשיו חברי הכנסת, שיהיו חברי הכנסת. מכיוון שאני עסוק בעיקר, בייחוד לאחר מה שיצאתי מהממשלה בעתיד, לא אתווכח על דברים שיש לה הרבה מה להתווכח, בעיקר אדבר קצת על העתיד. מחוז חפצנו ההיסטורי הוא חברה חדשה, הבנויה על חירות, שוויון, סובלנות, עזרה הדדית ואהבת הבריות. זאת אומרת חברה שאין בו ניצול, אפליה, שיבוט, שלטוני ואיש. אין אנחנו יכולים להתפאר שעם בישראל הוא כבר עכשיו עם סגולה. גם מעמדנו בעולם ייקבע לא על ידי עושרנו החומרי כביכול, גם לא על ידי גבורתנו הצבאית, אלא על ידי המאור המוסרי של מפעלנו. אם כי לא מעטים הצללים, והם גם כמה צללים כבדים בחיינו עכשיו. יש לנו יסוד מספיק להאמין כי יש ביכולתנו להיות עם סגולה.
What kind of music do you listen to? You listen to classical music most of the time?
Sometimes, not very often, not very often.
Not very much.
No.
Heaven help the child who never had a home. Heaven help the man who gave that child a gun. Heaven help the people with their backs against the wall. Heaven help us all. Heaven help us, Lord. Hear us call when we fall.
When you think of your own contribution to the fulfillment of the reestablishment of the state, what are the main areas of your contribution?
If I would be alone, I would be able to do nothing.
Pardon?
I alone wouldn't be able to do anything. It's such a matter which doesn't depend on a single person. This is the mistake. There are many histories which they say, oh, this was done by that leader and by that leader. I don't believe it. There are things which have been done by a single man. For instance, the theory, relativity. This was created by Einstein. Although when I spoke with Einstein, I read his biography, that Einstein was the only scientist which from pure thinking came to certain new ideas about science. I asked him, is it true? He said, it's partly true. I myself didn't make all those experiments, but I knew the experiments others made, and I drew from them certain conclusions. But without those experiments, I wouldn't be able to reach my theory. But in history, I don't believe that a single person can change things. Unless it is done by the people, or by a part of the people, it can be done. And if you wouldn't have the pioneers of the first generation, you wouldn't be able to do that.
But you can't deny that you had a role.
Of course, I was appointed prime minister, so I had to do something.
And you've guided Israel well.
I didn't guide Israel. I guided myself. I never guided Israel.
Do you fear for your country?
Oh, I always feared. I always. Not only now. That state does not yet exist. It's a beginning only.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ben Gourion.
So we finish? No, not yet. No, another 10 minutes. They still became 20 to 8. Now it's 30 to 10, so it's not yet 2 hours.
אפשר לגמור הערב.
אפשר לגמור? All right, I'm ready. You go home and all this stuff.